Hi there. This is the first time I've done a BattleTech report. I had the original BattleDroid game way back when, and I still keep coming back to BattleTech every once in a while. Actually, I'm planning on coming back to BattleTech more often. The game hasn't really changed a lot in concept since the original game. The biggest changes are weapons, their characteristics, how to play a match game or setting up your battle values with the mechs. There's a few rules here and there that have changed. Probably the biggest change is the constantly expanding eras, which introduce new technology and just a huge number of new mechs and weapons into the game. The BattleTech timeline has been constantly progressing ever since the original game. We've seen multiple dynasties rise in power, their demise and fall, invasion of the dreaded clans, which contain super tech and super warriors that the Inner Sphere had never seen. We've seen multiple civil wars. All sorts of things have happened. As with the Games Workshop universes, BattleTech has an exhaustive literary history with loads of professional and fan-based fiction. I really recommend you check it out if you're looking for something non-Games Workshop related. Faza, the original game designer, is long gone now, but Catalyst Games has taken over the system. They've introduced new updates through successful Kickstarters and have expanded the plastic model range, though the old metals are still popular, and now 3D print templates are available for printing your own custom mechs. In fact, the original game came with paper cutouts for the more popular mechs at that time, so you can use just about anything to play this game. It's all legal. BattleTech can be compared to Game Workshop's Adeptus Titanicus, where you're tracking the individual weapons and systems on each fighting unit. Battle mechs are the equivalent of Titans, though not quite as ridiculous in size. Light mechs are 20 to 30 tons. These are usually your scouts and your fast-moving units. Medium mechs are 40 to 55 tons. This is your main workforce, and this is mostly what you're going to see on the battlefield. Heavy mechs are 60 to 75 tons. These are usually your commanders and experienced pilots. They may contain extra fire support or just extra assault force. And that brings us to the assault mechs, which are 80 to 100 tons. These are the kings of the battlefield. Usually you only see one assault mech per side per battle. These mechs are a huge investment, and most organizations, whether it's a mercenary company or one of the houses, will deploy only if they deem it necessary. A data sheet is kept for each mech or unit to track ammo expenditure, heat buildup, and damage. A game can be played with one mech per side, but typically is done with a lance, which is 4 mechs. These are typically 2 to 4 hour games at this level, depending on experience levels and how large your mechs become. Larger games of 2 to 3 lances or 8 to 12 mechs can be played by 2 players, but usually it's done over the course of a weekend, again depending on the size of the mechs you choose. If you do want to play the larger formations such as companies, you probably want to look at Alpha Strike rules. These use the same miniatures as BattleTech. Alpha Strike is simply a fast play system that doesn't contain the same amount of detail per mech that the original game does. Both the basic rules for BattleTech and Alpha Strike are available for download from the Catalyst website if you want to check the rules out before committing. I haven't played in over 5 years, more likely 10 years, so I asked Steve to put me through a refresher of the latest and greatest rule set. We agreed on a lance formation of 4 battle mechs each, maximum 1 assault mech. We also agreed not to go any later in the timeline other than the Succession Wars time, which ends at 3049. This was just before the clans showed up with their super technology and weapons. Also, to speed up the game a bit, we chose gunner pilot skills of 2-3. Usually the Inner Sphere mechs are 4 and 5. Steve's force of Crimson Hawk Mercenary Company consisted of a Jenner light mech, which was his scout and major harassment, a Phoenix Hawk, which is a good, fast, medium scout, an Archer, which was his heavy artillery support. It's basically a huge missile boat. And finally an Atlas, which is an assault mech and the bane of my existence. Sorry, I forgot to record his model number, so I can't give you the exact details of what he had. My Force Davian consisted of a lance of one Wolverine, WVR-6R, which was my medium workhorse, my Griffin, GRF-1N, which is my medium sniper, a Thunderbolt, TDR-5SE, he's my heavy and my boss, and a Catapult, CPLT-C1, which is my heavy artillery support, and another missile boat. We did compare the tonnage after the battle. I believe we were within 5 or 10 tons of each other. This is tonnage, not battle ratings. We fought the battle on a Tukiyid battle mat. So my green Davian that are barely painted versus Steve Brown's, what did you say they were again?
Crescent Hawks.
Crescent Hawks. Let's see, we've got an Atlas, a Jenner, Phoenix Hawk, and an Archer.
Yep.
There, I remembered. I got a Catapult, a Thunderbolt, a Wolverine, and a Griffin. And this is the... I'll find out the name of the map later, I keep forgetting.
I can never pronounce it properly. Tukiyad?
I think so, Tukiyad or something like that.
Yeah. I always have a hard time pronouncing that one, so. 3 with the jump.
Okay. So I moved my guys forward a bit. These 3 all ran. And keeping my catapult back, he didn't do anything. Steve has jumped his Jenner and his Phoenix Hawk, and he walked his Archer, and the dreaded Atlas is just taking a stroll down the road. Let's figure out our shooting. So for shooting, I took a shot with my Griffin and my Thunderbolt, needing 11 and 12 to hit. Both missed. Steve saved his ammunition.
Smartly so.
End of turn 1, we're going on to turn 2, and once again I lost the initiative, so I get to move first. So, turn 2 shooting. My Thunderbolt took some hits, as did my Griffin, and while I did shoot at the Atlas, I did no damage, and I shot at the little Jenner there.
You did 6 points. Your missiles hit.
Yes, I hit 6 points with missiles. I missed the Jenner completely. He ran. He was almost impossible to hit. We're now starting turn 3. Let's see who has the initiative. Oh, I rolled a 3. I'm doing consistent.
Staying with
My pull, end of turn 3, my poor Wolverine taking some more damage. So did the Thunderbolt. But we managed to do 20 points of damage plus on the Atlas there, so he had to do a piloting roll. Unfortunately, he had no problems. So we're on to the next turn. Okay, so the Atlas has taken a lot of damage again, but he's still going quite strong. My poor Wolverine almost lost his left leg. And my Griffin, by accident, got a headshot on the Phoenix Hawk and killed him with a single shot.
PPC.
PPCs. Gotta love it.
Ouch, that hurts.
But I did generate heat with that because I had also said I was going to fire my missiles, and I only had enough to cover 12, and there was 14 heat total. So that's it for the shooting on this turn. So this last turn, my Thunderbolt jumped over the Atlas, so he wouldn't face that AC-20. My Wolverine decided to be brave, and he took all the fire. As you can see, he's now lying down on the job. Managed to take a head hit when I fell. Atlas is taking lots and lots of incremental damage, but that's...
It's adding up.
It's adding up.
It's adding up.
Meanwhile, I'm starting to generate some heat on the Thunderbolt and the Griffin, so I gotta be careful going forward. So, on to the next turn. So, the Atlas is still alive. My Thunderbolt took some damage. The Wolverine managed to stand up. My poor Griffin got shot in the back. But all my attacks were basically directed at the Griffin, except for an attack against the Archer by my Catapult, which wildly missed.
That would be, your targets were my Atlas.
Yeah, so 3 on the Atlas and 1 on the Archer, and I didn't do anything significant. Oh, I did get a headshot on the Atlas, right?
Yes, and I made my piloting.
Yeah. So we're grinding him down, but the question is who's going to be ground down faster, my 4 Mechs or his Atlas? Especially with his other stuff shooting at the same time.
The fact that my Atlas is...
Hey, whoops. So, our final turn, because, well, I'll explain real quick. My Catapult came around the corner to shoot at the Atlas. The Atlas decided to do an internal hit on my ammo. Let's just say there's not enough internals in the Catapult when an ammo has exploded with half of its ammo. So he exploded gloriously, but he did significant damage to the Atlas before he died. My Thunderbolt, he also suffered ammo explosion from the Archer, but he managed to put some damage onto the Atlas before he exploded as well. So at this point I have a Wolverine with a paper mache leg. He's only got 5 points on his left leg, so he's going to bug out. And that would just leave my Griffin, who's also suffering internal structure damage. And so, yeah, it just makes no sense to bug out. But definitely a good game.
That was an amazing game.
It was hilarious. I expected some of my stuff to blow up. I didn't expect 2 Mechs to blow up in one turn. That was hilarious.
I mean, lucky headshot on a full-up Phoenix Hawk was like, oh,
yeah,
that put me down early.
And you still had your Jenner, although he's a little bit warm. He's
cool now because he only fired the SRM this round.
Yeah, he's been tormenting my poor Griffin. Like I said, he's going to bug out anyway because he suffered so much rear and side damage. So I think I did a reasonable amount of damage back. I just can't stand up any longer.
This is the Atlas.
So Atlas, I can't see. There we go. So you can see I did a really good job tearing his armor down. I just didn't finish the job.
You did manage to take out the AC-20. You got a fusion hit and a gyro hit.
Yeah. What are you up for heat? You're up to 14 heat now.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I made him work for it. So here's the diagram showing my Lance's final damage at the end of the battle. Thanks to Steve for showing me this site, Flex Sheets. It really made tracking things during the battle much easier. If you have a tablet, I can't recommend it enough. I still need to explore some of its more advanced features. So looking at the mechs. My Griffin lost all its armor and most of its internal structure on the left arm. Fortunately, nothing important is there other than the arm mechanisms themselves. Steve's Jenner did almost get through the rear armor, and I figure in another turn or 2 he probably would. My Wolverine had its left leg almost blown off. When it got hit, it suffered so much damage I had to take a piloting roll, and unfortunately I failed it. So I suffered head damage after I fell down. Any other damage to the head and I would have to roll a 5+ or fall unconscious. The Wolverine was able to stand up after falling and continue the fight, but on the last turn it only had 4 points of internal leg structure on the left leg, and it lost most of the rest of its armor by the end of the game. Thus, he would have retreated. The Thunderbolt had suffered 2 head hits, bringing the next hit up to a 7+ consciousness roll if hit again. Fortunately, or unfortunately, I never needed to do that, because a lucky hit to the center torso and my missile ammunition exploded, taking out my entire center mass, destroying the Thunderbolt. Finally, my catapult got one-shotted, peeking around the side of a hill by the Atlas's autocannon 20. The shot hit its shoulder and penetrated the internals and set off the ammo stored in the shoulder. The explosion took out all the rest of the structure on the left arm, and then all other force was directed to the internal and took out all the center internals as well. As a result, no more mech. So, with the loss of 2 mechs and one about to lose a leg, I really did have no choice but to retreat. Sadly, I don't have similar shots of Steve's damage. I forgot to ask him to forward me his sheets, and I don't know if he still has them. So, how did I think the game went? Well, I got fixated on that Atlas. With an AC-20 that does 20 points of damage per shot, I couldn't ignore it, but I spent so much time shooting at it, and honestly, the thing should have died a turn or 2 before the end of the game. Even Steve was surprised it lasted as long as it did. Secondly, I was thinking I was going to keep the catapult at the back of the table and just keep launching missiles all game. And then in the second turn, both Steve and I realized we had misread the height levels of the hills. So the hill he was on in the background was shorter than the hill in the foreground, so I was suffering indirect fire penalties, and it just made it too hard to hit. So by the time I finally decided to move him forward, he'd been held back too long, and it took him too long to actually get into the fight. On the other hand, because it took him so long to get in the fight, we managed to accumulate enough damage on the Atlas that it really was a serious threat to Steve. The other thing I thought was interesting was that lucky head hit on the Phoenix. I had just about decided to shoot at something else, and Steve convinced me that I should take a chance and take a shot at his Phoenix. Boy, is he regretting that decision. A PPC hit to the head, and the head is gone. Goodbye, Phoenix. My last thing I observed is we really need to read the MAT statistics more carefully. Both Steve and I, in the first turn, we were looking at the hills, and each level, there's a little gradient on the hex side. You normally assume that they're only a level 1 rise. Well, it turned out on that map, on both our sides, there were 2 level and 3 level rises. Now, you can climb up a 2 level rise, but you cannot climb up a 3 level rise. So both of us realized that after the first turn, and it threw both of our strategies out the window, although mine more than Steve's, simply because I hadn't anticipated having my line of sight blocked at all for the catapult. And while I managed to get my Griffin in a good firing position on top of the mountain, he was totally exposed and got blasted for his effort. Finally, I need to play more games, especially BattleTech. That's it for this battle. I hope we don't have such a delay between games in the future. What did you think of the recording I just did, with the end phases only recorded? Would you like to see more detailed dice rolling and movement phase? If you know of any other tools like the flex sheets, what are they and what are your experiences with them? Please let me know in the comments. In the meantime, here's hoping your dice roll well and your games are fun. Take care.